Okay, welcome to the week 2 go-to session. We got a lot to cover in this session because you are going to be working on the actual draft of the essay. By the way, nearly all of you, not nearly all of you I've already gotten back in contact with because I graded your go-to quizzes from last week where you proposed a topic, and I think I got around back to people pretty fast. I mean, a lot of people heard back to me last Friday. A couple people, because the quiz wasn't officially due until Friday at midnight. Some people heard from me Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon. But I think I've spoken with just about everybody in terms of topics. Um, can people hear me? Am I coming through? Oh, okay, because someone said something about I can't hear you. James, I don't know if he was referring to me or I don't know what else he'd be referring to, but I'm going to go ahead and type to James real quickly in the chat box, and I'll try to keep talking as well. Uh, so I've pretty much responded to everyone, and I think I've even heard back from people who did a good job of bouncing ideas back and forth with me, and we've had kind of long, ongoing discussion. So I think just about everybody is, um, I'm not even going to type in the chat box. It's like I can't do two things at once. Actually, someone else type to James for me. I can't type and talk at the same time. Someone type in the chat to let James know that there has to be something on his end that's going on. I don't know if he accidentally has his volume down. I don't know if there's something that's not quite working, but he's the only one who's not hearing me. So can someone let him know that he's the only one who's not hearing me currently? But I'm going to charge on. If worse comes to worse, he can always hear the recording, watch the recording after the fact. Okay, so I'm sorry for the delay. Basically, I've gotten in touch with all of you regarding your topics, and a lot of people had pretty good topics to begin with. Other people, yeah, they needed some help. They needed some sort of guidance to go in the right direction. But I think last time I checked, just about everybody is on the right path now, so that's good. Because the next step, which we're going to get into talk about today, is writing the essay. The draft isn't due for a week from today. Uh, Normally, we're a little bit off schedule because of the weirdness of this month. I mean, typically I'm hosting a go-to session talking about a major assignment that's due on Sunday. So here's not due until next Tuesday because the assignments are sort of staggered this month, in which I've extended some dates for assignments the first 2 weeks. But come week 3, week 4, we sort of get things back on track in terms of falling back into the old way that things would be scheduled in terms of due dates. But still, we don't have another go-to session until next Tuesday, so I will talk about the essay, even though it's still 7 days away. We'll also get into issues of research and APA because there is a research requirement for this assignment, and also you have to learn how to cite things using APA style. So yeah, we got a lot to go over. And this is just an overview of what I just said. Okay, so we'll discuss the appeal for essay, action essay. Actually, I'm going to do things in a slightly different order today, um, and mostly talk about research first. And I'll remind us of some of the essay writing basics, like introductions, the conclusion. I'll give you a sense of, in very very general terms, like what your essay is going to look like in terms of the shape it's going to take. Um, but let's go ahead and get to this stuff here, research and APA style, because it's not that this is the most important part of it, but it's probably the biggest part and sometimes the most scary part and the most confusing part for students. So let's get rolling. Uh, Before we get rolling, real quick, I mean, I think most of you checked your feedback on the week number one go-to quiz. If you haven't, please do so. And if you haven't already, refine your topic. So if I had some concerns about your topic, make sure you've been doing that. I think most people have. Because it's important that we get this stuff established. Because, again, your topic more or less has to be approved so that it becomes the foundation for your final project, which is the multimedia public service announcement. Oh, ignore that slide. I got rid of that quiz question. So nobody freak out. That wasn't a quiz question that you missed. It's just I've gotten rid of it. And by the way, all the quiz questions today will actually come at the end of the session. So don't worry, they're not going to pop up in between. Okay, so let's talk about research. There is a research requirement for this assignment. Actually, let me bring up the assignment sheet real quickly. Uh, This is, I'm talking about the appeal for action essay assignments. So this is the draft of your paper. Okay, so if I scroll through the activities here, where is it? There it is. Assignment number 1, appeal for action essay. By the way, good job for most people who are keeping up with the other activities, the Learn Smart Achieve stuff. I know I sent out a pretty strongly worded announcement yesterday, and I've already heard back from at least one person who says, but I did it, I've been keeping up with it. That's fine. My message was pretty strongly worded because I was concerned about the number of people who hadn't gotten moving on the those interactive modules over at the textbook site. So don't lose sight of those. Don't forget to do them. Uh, One of them is due tonight, I believe. Okay, so here's the assignment sheet for the actual essay, which is again due from a week from today. Again, if I didn't say this during last go-to session that we held, I'm going to say it now. Ignore the dates. Normally, the due dates for this class don't change from month to month. Things are always due on a Sunday. Other assignments are always due, I don't know, on a Thursday. So don't worry about the Sunday of week 2. I need to get in there and change that. It's just that it's a PDF, which requires a few extra steps to get changed. But no. Always follow the due dates that are actually on the page, right? So for this assignment, as you can see, it's listed as September 16th, which is a Tuesday. So always pay attention to the dates that are on the actual FSO platform, even though our documents are a little bit off because of all the changes we've had this month. Okay, you can read through most of this on your own. For example, you get good information like it should be 2 to 4 pages long. That's not really terribly long. Students think that it is, but it's not. Note that it's 2 to 4 pages, not counting the APA style cover page and the APA references page. Okay, so those are extra pages that you'll need to have. But the bulk of the essay itself needs to be 2 to 4 pages. You can see it's worth 10% of your grade. What you need to do in preparation, etc. Here's a reminder of everything that needs to be included. The cover page. Hopefully, you're mentioning a specific audience somewhere in your. But a lot of you have kind of already done that with the introductions that you posted to the board, which I've also jumped in and started responding to. The board, last time I checked, it was still a little bit slow, so I'm hoping more people post their work by at least midnight tonight, so that gives everybody a full 24 hours tomorrow to respond to one another's efforts that have been posted to the board. I think I forgot to mention this last time, but please give attention to those people who haven't received feedback yet. Something weird happens where the very first person who posts, actually I think you can keep getting bumped down when you're the first one to post, but regardless, whoever appears at the top of the page at that given moment will receive like 10 people responding, whereas people who have been bumped down to the bottom tend to get ignored. So spread the wealth. Okay. But you can read through this on your own. It's important to look at the rubric at the end so you can see what you're being graded upon, what you need to do to get like an excellent grade versus needs improvement or not even college level. So that's most I want to go. Oh, I forgot. The real reason I wanted to bring you here is that, yeah, you have to have at least one resource that comes from the Full Sail Library Research Database. Okay, so at least one cited entry needs to come, and that's what it gets into here in point 3. Okay, you're going to have an APA cited library research supporting your claims. All sources must be cited in text. You need at least one source, but I encourage people to have more. One is sort of the minimum, but beyond that, you can feel free to go crazy. And I'm going to give an example and show you where to go to get research in just a second. But first, let's talk about research in the bigger picture. First of all, research means joining a discussion. At least that's how I look at research. The reason I say research is like joining a discussion is because ideally that's what research is supposed to be. Okay? Because sometimes students think about research in much different ways. They see it as, oh, it's that requirement that I have to do that as part of the assignment. And yeah, it is a requirement. It is something you have to fulfill. But it's more than that. Ideally, research is like joining a conversation or discussion. By that I mean, imagine that you're at a party, okay? You wander over to a group of people, and by the way, this party is like maybe not super formal, but it's more or less an adult party. When I say party, I don't mean like keg party. I mean like a dinner party. And you wander over to a group of individuals that are having a discussion. Chances are, let's say they're talking about something like politics or recent films or what have you. Chances are you're not going to just barrel in and jump right into the discussion. You're probably going to linger in the shadows. You're going to hang around at the edges of that conversation. You're going to eavesdrop for a while before you get your bearings straight, and then you'll sort of jump in. Um, this ideally is how research works. It's a conversation too. It's just a conversation that isn't happening in real time with people's voices speaking out loud. Rather, it's sort of eavesdropping in on the conversation that's always been ongoing. We have a lot of people writing about lots of different topics, everything from gaming to music to film. Chances are other people have already written on these topics, even your specifically narrow topic that you're going to pursue for this PSA. Um, and that means you can benefit from what they've said, right? You can benefit from the snippets that they've already added to the conversation. But not conducting research or not taking research seriously means that you hit the ground running in terms of your paper, sort of like just throwing yourself into a conversation before you've really found your footing. Um, and, it's just sort of common sense because other people have already thought about these things, spoken on these things. That's a tremendous help to you because why wouldn't you rely on their advice, their expertise, their knowledge? So research really is about joining in on that conversation because then when you produce something, you're sort of contributing to that ongoing conversation. Okay, maybe for this class, people beyond this course won't see your PSA. But who knows? Sometime in the future, you may start a blog. You may end up writing online pieces or online reviews. You might become such an important part of the industry that people do want to hear your thoughts. So eventually, you will be contributing to the conversation. So that's what research is, and that's how I encourage people to look at it. I know people are busy. I know people have jobs and family, and not everyone can devote themselves, full hog into just doing hours and hours of endless research. But ideally, you should be putting more effort into it than just running to the Full Sail library databases to, I just need to find, a quote or something to throw in the paper because that's a requirement. No, the idea here is to really sort of become part of the ongoing discussion that's already been taking place. Okay, and actually, before I get into APA style, let me show you where you need to begin your research. As I said, at least one source needs to come from the Full Sail library database. All of you have taken digital literacy, which is also a course I teach here. Do you all remember how to get to the Full Sail library? Yes? Okay, I mean, you have a link here, but even I, as an instructor, just do it the old fashioned way. Sometimes I'll go to Google and just type in Full Sail Connect. Right? And it's always this one, the one that has a weird runway.fullsail.edu. And I click on it. Yeah, someone mentioned they've changed it. Yeah, it has a completely different look, but it still works kind of the same way. I always just click on Browse Organizations, click the letter L, because that will immediately limit things to the library, and boom, there it is. And if you scroll down, you'll see that under Resources you have Research Databases, so I'm going to click on that. You have a whole bunch of useful stuff here, and I encourage people to look through it. So you have one that's devoted to business-related articles, communication and mass media. There's even some specific stuff that's useful for where is it? Yeah, like Gamasutra, which is a website actually that's devoted to video game issues. Even though it's a separate website, it's listed here in the Full Sail library databases, so we consider it a quality source. The reason why you need to have at least one source that comes from the Full Sail research databases is because we need to ensure that you're at least getting one piece of quality information, okay? Because in a second I'll talk about online information and why you have to be careful. But most people really just start with the first one, not because it's the very first one on the list, although I'm sure that's part of the reason, but also because this is the most comprehensive database, arguably, that we have. It's also the one that's probably going to return the best results. Yeah, James says remember to click the link if you were accessing off campus. I'm off campus now, and it basically takes you through the steps. Like it will take you on the thing you have to click, or it'll take you through the different steps. Yeah, there always is like an additional step I need to go through if I'm working from home instead of on campus. Okay, so here we are in Academic Search Complete, which, by the way, is part of the larger number of databases that are included in EBSCOhost. Sometimes people just refer to Academic Search Complete as EBSCOhost, and that's not quite right. But okay, you have these search fields. I recommend using an intelligent combination of keywords to enter into these fields. What you don't want to do, I think, is literally just put in your topic. I mean, sometimes that works well, but sometimes it doesn't. Or if you just literally put in your thesis, or you're not creative with keywords, you can get really, really kind of bad results. So I'm going to try to be somewhat varied. So if you remember, my sort of mock topic that I posted to the board was, remember, it had to deal with images of women in video games, and how even though game companies have made strides, further improvement needs to continue, and that I call on gamers to make their voices by heard, either by writing sort of letters to the editor, to the gaming magazines, or writing to game publishers themselves. Right? Remember, I posted an example of that to the discussion board. So I'm just going to type, let's see, women and representation and video games. Why is it squiggling? Did I misspell that? Yeah, I did. Okay. So now I'll conduct my search. And you'll see I get 34 results. That's pretty good. Because as I'll show in a second, if I just limited it to women in video games, I'd probably get a lot more than 34. 34 is useful. By the way, that's why we use a variety of search keywords, so that we can narrow the results. We can also further narrow it on the left here by just, if we just want to see articles where we can get the full text, we can click on that box. That limits it to 17. You can limit it to by date, so you don't get something that's too old or too new, etc. I'm going to click off the full text thing here just for a second, because most students forget to do that. So I'm just going to pretend that you got your list of 34 things. And you can see, like, some of them, they're interesting, but they don't quite work. Like selling gender, box art representation of female characters. Okay, maybe that would work. Obviously, there is a connection between box art and what I'm talking about, so that wouldn't be completely ridiculous. But it looks like this one is not available. Okay, by the way, that happens. It's annoying, but it happens. You'll get results that the Full Sail library doesn't really have access to. So if I click on this, I believe all we're going to get is, yeah, like we get an abstract, which is a summary of the article, but we don't get the article itself. I could take a stab at copying and pasting the title into Google and seeing if it's online for free. Usually that doesn't happen because academic journals typically don't give their material away for free, but I could try it out if it sounds really, really interesting. My best bet is just to go back and try again. Spatial skills between men and women? No, that doesn't work. The Proteus effect and experiences of self-objectification? Oh no, that sounds too fancy. Don't even know what that means. But if I keep scrolling down, things get more interesting, right? So here's one. Big breasts and bad guys. Depictions of gender and race in video games. Okay, that sounds pretty interesting. I'm not sure if it's great, but it certainly sounds like it's on the right path. Still a man's game, gender representation in online reviews of video games. Okay, that seems like it might be a little bit off, but who knows? There might be something interesting in there. A content analysis of female body imagery in video games. That sounds interesting, but unfortunately this one isn't available either. These things happen. But at least we've, so far, just by looking through the first 8 or 9, we've already found one that seems like it could be interesting. So I'll just click on the article itself. Usually you'll have either an HTML or a PDF version of it down below. You just click on it, and it will take you right to the article. This is from 2008, which is a little bit old, but it's still not, it's not like this is an article from 1985 or something. I'd want to keep searching and hopefully find something that maybe is a little bit more recent, but I think it's within the realm of acceptable 2008. Okay, so here's the article itself, which I can download if I like, which I can read on my own. You see, I don't know, on PC it's probably different, but on Mac, you get the little disk icon when you bring your cursor to the bottom of the screen, so I can just save it to my desktop if I want. Um, I'm actually going to come back to this in just a second because I'm going to show a neat citation trick, but I haven't yet gotten into citations, so I'm going to hold off. Uh, oh, bear with me. I'm going to see if I can open up two versions of this thing. Because I also want to show like what it looks like when you use different keywords. Although for my topic, I'll probably still get good results. I got a great topic. Representation of women in video games. There's so much that's been written on that. It's sort of like that's an example where you probably could just put in anything. By the way, if you want to remind me of what your topics in general are in just like 2 or 3 words, you can do so in the chat box, and we can try it out now here in real time. But if I just put women and video games, I bet I'll still get some good results, even though there might be too many results. Yeah, look, 2,747. So that's a problem. And you can see how to increase probability of manuscript acceptance. I have no idea why that came up. Right? It's just looking for anything that contains the word women in game. How to promote weight loss during postpartum period. Saluting women behind the scene. Violence against women in video games. Prequel or sequel to rape myth. That sounds interesting, but unfortunately it's not available. Sex differences and similarities in video game experience. Okay, that might be worth checking out, and it's got a PDF. What are some? Go ahead and type in your topics into the board, because maybe we can try out one of yours in real time. Oh, here's one that looks really good. Tropes versus women in video games. The damsel in distress. That sounds awesome, actually. So let's click on that. Okay. I've actually seen this because this is part of a famous video series that you can see online at feministfrequency.com. But here's the script version of it, and I already know because I've watched the video series that this is pretty awesome stuff. No one wants to try out their topic in real time. Lack of leading women in comic book movies. Oh, okay, that's a good one because I honestly don't know what thing. How about we start off with women characters, comic book. See, it's almost like I need more search fields. Let me see if I can combine some of these women characters, comic book and film. Out of character. What is this? The article focuses on the modern film treatment of the superheroine series Wonder Woman. Okay, that sounds maybe too specific, but sometimes the stuff that doesn't seem like it's 100% on target can still be useful because maybe it touches on something that's interesting. Here's one about the character of Catwoman in the Batman comic books and motion pictures. Again, maybe it's not 100% on target, but it may make the very point that women sort of get ignored in these movies. The girl reporter gets her man. Okay, that's not quite it. He's got to be strong. He's got to be fast. What does it say? Investigating the engendered superhero body. This article discusses the conundrum of physical and mental prowess of comic book superheroes. Okay, that's too comic specific. Yeah, I mean, I'd have to keep trying. But it's actually good to see me crash and burn a little bit here, because the lesson I want to give you is it might take you 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour just to get useful search results. Like, my topic was so awesome that I don't have to do much of anything to get good results. But this one is challenging. No, actually, I think you'll find great stuff, Zachary. I really do. But it's just going to be about how to use the right search terms to get trigger results. Gosh, I don't know what's. It's that word comic that keeps throwing things off. Because I'm sure I could. do things like female action hero and get better results. But if you're looking for something comic specific, uh, our female action heroes risky role models. That's annoying too because we're not getting full text things. That's why it's good to click on the full text button to the left, because then you get things that are only available. And we're getting some weird results here. Super Bitches and Action Babes. Well, that's an awesome title. I don't know how useful it is. I actually have another trick for Zach. I mean, one is just to keep playing around with the right search terms. Eventually, you'll trigger the interesting results. Another solution, this applies to all of you, is to do what I call reverse engineering, which means maybe you should begin with your internet searches first, and that will give you a better sense of what's out there and better sense of like what search terms you could possibly use, and then come back to the full sale library databases. Or I mean, Zachary, you might also want to think about specific comic book films that have lacked women, or like if you look for a specific film or specific targeted topic, you'll tend to get good results as well. At least one source needs to come from the full sale library database. So even if it's something secondary, let's say Zachary likes one of those articles that I found before dealing with, I don't know, Wonder Woman or Catwoman, because somewhere in the article it does address the issues that he's interested in. Like, okay, he's fulfilled that requirement. And then he can go online to find the other things. And I'm going to go back to my topic because I'm going to cheat. Because I know my topic is awesome. It's going to yield, I hope, good results. I should have tried this out before the session, but like if I just do a regular Google search, so like representation of women in video games, right, and wait for my results. By the way, first you get a Wikipedia entry. Is Wikipedia a good source? Yes? No? No? Okay, good. That's what I want to hear. Does it have any usefulness, though? Is there any way Wikipedia can be helpful? Perhaps. Is it always terrible? Is there anything in it that's useful? Yeah, I do think it can be useful, depending on how well it's written and stuff. Is if you go to the very bottom, you do get a list of references. These are worth checking out. Okay? Yeah, I mean, James, the text of Wikipedia itself is not worth citing. Even if it does contain pretty good stuff, it's just that Wikipedia in general, you don't know who wrote it. You don't know... Yeah, I mean, there's too much mystery involved. But certainly if you find one that seems to be kind of solid, you could definitely sort of cruise through the list to see what's there. So let's see. What do we got here? Lara Croft and Her Sisters. Okay. Bayonetta, empowering or exploitative, right? So we could kind of scroll through this list to see if we can find things that are sort of interesting, and I'm sure I could find lots of great stuff. Okay, here's the Feminist Frequency site, which also came up in our list. Women fighters in reasonable armor, an idea whose time has come. That sounds funny, because I'm sure that's about how female characters are almost half naked, even though they're supposed to be fighting in the tundra or something. Okay, so we can kind of check that list, or we could go back to our Google results and see if there's something interesting. Video games and gender, game representation. It's associated with Radford University. I would want to look up what Radford University is and see if it's trustworthy. IGN, I do consider certain sites, like there are sites like IGN, GameSpot, Game Informer, that are pretty well known. So I do treat those as like interesting sources. Okay, actually I have a lot of stuff to cover, so I'm going to kind of move ahead now. But as you can see, you can use a mixture, and hopefully you do use a mixture of sources that you find through the Full Sail database and quality, credible sources that you can find online to help you eavesdrop in on that conversation that I call research. Okay, so that's sort of your goal. And if you're having trouble, let me know. I can help. like I sort of crashed and burned with Zachary's example, but it's just because I don't want to spend 20 minutes trying to uh, get decent results. Okay, so once you find your research, there's this thing called APA style, right? It's the format that we need to follow for this course. APA style basically refers to a couple different things. First of all, layout and format. By that I mean the paragraphing, the font, page numbers, the header, all that kind of stuff. Basically, the overall look of the document. But it also includes two other important elements: in-text citations. So, well, I'll explain that in a second. And at the end of your paper, there will be a references page, not a works cited page. That's what it's called in MLA, a references page. Okay, so here's the gist on in-text citations. Okay, and I'm sort of dumbing this down just because I think it's more important for you to get the gist of what you need to do, and then I'll show you where you can find out more information about the specifics. But basically, any quotation, fact, any piece of information that comes from your research that appears in your paper has to be cited. So, for example, if you do directly quote something, you basically have two ways to handle this. You can name the author, either by full name or just last name. You can name the author and the year of publication as sort of the setup to your quotation, so it's part of your sentence, and then you deliver your quotation. And at the very end, in parentheses, you put the page number. Or you can save everything, author's last name, publication year, page number, for the very end. Okay? So that's what I've done here. You can literally create a sentence that says, according to Smith, 2008, and then you insert your quotation, blah, 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 and then you put the page number, page 42. Or you save everything for the end. A recent study states, quotation, and then, Smith, 2008, paragraph 4. Now, the reason I have page number in one and paragraph in another is just to show the difference between traditional sources and online sources. Stuff that you find in the Full Sail databases probably come from an academic journal or some print publication that has page numbers. But like that IGN article that I just showed, or if you go to Game Informer, or you go to, I don't know, any number of different online sources, chances are you're not going to have page numbers. So what you do is you count the paragraphs, and you indicate which paragraph that information comes. If you don't quote directly, if you're just paraphrasing information, but that information comes from somewhere else, you still need to cite it. That's a big problem that I see, because it's technically plagiarism. Even if you're not directly quoting it, you still need to cite it. Because even though the words are your own, the ideas come from somewhere else. And by the way, when you paraphrase or rephrase things, it needs to be entirely in your own words. So, like, not even a single phrase should be matching the original. But if you do a good job of rephrasing, you just follow the same rules, right? You can use the author's name and publication year in a signal phrase in the sentence itself, and then save the page number for the end, or you can just put everything at the very end. Okay? So according to Smith, American students are underperforming in comparison to their world peers. Right? Author, year, we save the page number for the end. Or I can write basically that same sentence, a recent study shows that American students, blah, 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 and save everything for the end. If you can get this basic format down, which is not terribly difficult, this is the gist of what you need to do with in-text citations. I am sort of giving the simplest version of it because obviously you'll have to find natural ways for the research to be embedded within your paragraphs. You'll have to find the natural moments where you can have these sorts of lines appear. The good news is you do have an example paper to look at that I've put up there for you to use as not a model. You shouldn't be copying this paper exactly, but at least it gives you a sense of what a fairly decent paper looks like. It's this one here. Oh my gosh, I forgot to upload it. That's okay, I can upload it quickly after class. I do have it in one of my folders though. Let me move some things around. I believe, where did I put it? Here. Oh, I know where it is. It's in another class. Okay. Same exact assignments, it's just another section of this class. Okay, so appeal for action essay. Note to self, I need to drag this over to your class. Bear with me. Now I know where it is. Okay, there it is. Appeal for action essay example. Okay, so here we go. I've already downloaded it, and actually I'm going to drag it to my desktop. So the first thing I remember to do when this session is over is to drag it into your classes folder. Uh, but let's take a close look at it, okay? Not a close look, a quick look at it. Okay, we're going to go over some of this formatting stuff in just a second. But what I wanted to show you is that he does find natural ways to incorporate the information. Let me find a good example. Like here we go, right? By the way, his topic is about video games as well, about the issue of violence and what parents can do. What is the parent to do? Forbidding a child isn't really realistic. Even if violent video games are not allowed in the home, children might be exposed to violent games at friends' houses, arcades, or big box stores that allow customers to play on test consoles. Now here comes some research. According to USA Today, 2010, it's better to rely on parents to impose limits rather than expecting the heavy hand of the government to do the job for him. He's missing the end citation here. We need the page number, paragraph number, and he lost a few points for not doing that. Not many, because mostly he's doing an excellent job. But he is missing that last little piece here. But otherwise, it's pretty much perfect, right? I can't remember the student's paper. Perhaps there wasn't an author, but I mean, he's listing where it appeared, the year, and then the quotation also, it doesn't just flow naturally from the setup. This stuff, according to USA Today, it also fits in with the larger scope of the paragraph itself. So there are other issues. I mean, yeah, you need to get the citation stuff right, which I just covered on this page. But you also need to find places where the incorporation of research occurs naturally, where it's really helping you support your facts. Because I'm going to give some tips on things to avoid in just a second. And here they are. First of all, do not photobomb your quotations, facts, or statistics. What do I mean by photobomb? I mean, what is photobombing? It's literally like, right, you're taking a picture and someone accidentally walks in front of the frame, or you intentionally ruin someone's picture, right, to be funny or to make a joke. But that's what I like to call quotations that appear out of nowhere. Like there's very little setup. You're reading right along, you're cruising through the paragraph, and then it's like, boom, quotation. Doesn't really fit naturally. It's not set up. Okay, that has the same impression on someone, on a reader, as photobombing does when someone sort of surprises you and steps into the frame of the shot you're about to take with your camera. So do not photobomb your research. Okay, they need to be set up. At the minimum, they need to be set up with this way. Okay, but they also need to be set up in the larger scheme of fitting in within the overall paragraph. And a good suggestion I like to make is something I call the sandwich technique, which means we set up the quotation, which is like one piece of bread. We deliver the quotation, which is like the meat, or cheese or veggies if you're a vegetarian. And then we follow up the quotation with commentary, which is like the other piece of bread. Okay, we don't just drop things unannounced, or we don't just end a paragraph with a quotation and then don't comment on it. We make it a natural part of the overall essay. Also, be careful of long quotations that speak entirely for you. Okay, because occasional use of research should help you support your points, not the other way around. That's another big problem I see too. People find this huge chunk from an article and think, oh my god, that is so awesome. I could never word things that well. And then they just take the whole thing and drop it into their paper. Well, that's not you using research. That's just you finding an awesome section of what somebody else wrote and sticking in your paper because, well, one, it fills up a lot of space, and two, because you feel it does a better job speaking than you do. But in this paper, I mean, it should be like 80% you, at least. that's doing most of the talking, with another 15% or so. Yeah, that might take the forms of research, statistics, facts, what have you, that's helping support your points. Okay? Your writing doesn't exist to hold up the research. That's sort of backwards. And plus, quotations that are over 40 words long, they need to be put in a very, very special format, which requires an extra step. So, if you do find a long quote and you're using it correctly, typically long quotes are used because you truly want the reader to examine that entire long quote, because you're going to respond to it in depth, or you're going to comment on it, because the whole passage needs to be digested. If you're really using it correctly that way, yeah, you'll just have to learn the special format for it. But if not, stay away from quotations longer than 40 words, just because format-wise it becomes sort of awkward. Speaking of formatting, that leads me into my next point, which is there's something called the references page. Now, why do I have this big sorry sign up? The reason I have it up is because the rules governing the references page are so numerous, so varied, depending on whether you have a video or an article, depending if it comes from a website or a periodical or a newspaper. I do not have enough time in the day. Like, we would have to devote an entire session just to the references page. That doesn't mean that I'm blowing off the topic, but I am going to point to places where you can learn more. First, for this activity, you have something. It's a PowerPoint presentation, and it's in your assignment for the Appeal for Action essay. Okay, so it's one of your assets. It's available. I just need to remember to put that sample essay in there too for you to look at. But here it is. It's called the APA Basics PowerPoint. I'm going to open this thing up. Now I just realized that I had this on my desktop anyway, so I just wasted time downloading it. That's awesome. Okay, this has like 50 slides, but it's still, I mean, it might take you, I don't know, 30 minutes to get through. I encourage people to go through it. It's not really that difficult. I'm not going to go through all the slides. You get some background on what APA is and what its goal is. It's interesting stuff. I encourage you to read it, because I think it's important to understand the bigger picture of what we're doing. But look, we get examples of the things that I just covered. Here's what an in-text citation looks like. Author, year, page or paragraph numbers. Right? What do you do if there's no author? Use the first 3 words of the article title and put it in quotation marks. What if there's no date? Just use the abbreviation ND. What if it's an online piece or just a one-page article? Use a paragraph number. Okay, so lots of your exceptions or lots of your nitpicky rules that you might run back to me for. Not that I don't mind. Listen, I don't mind answering your questions, but a lot of the questions can be answered in this presentation. Okay, and it gets into the same things that I got into, how we set up something. Same thing applies, right? We can name the author in the sentence. If there's no date, we just put ND in parentheses. Okay? And if you keep going through this, I'm going to sort of fly through it. It gets into issues of what the references page, the citations for the references page should look like. Okay? So this PowerPoint presentation, which I didn't put together, by the way, another instructor did, like, this is pretty awesome. I guarantee you take the 30 minutes to go through this PowerPoint presentation, which is available as one of your assets for this assignment, you will not have any confusion about APA style. But if you don't go through it, then yeah, it's going to be a little bit awkward for you. Another tool you can use is just your McGraw-Hill Connect site. So let me go there real quickly. Zachary asked a good question. Can we use Cite Machine for the references? Yes, but I'm going to show you the dangers that you have to watch out for in just a second. Okay, so we're in the McGraw-Hill site. You can see that APA formatting, okay? We have lots of required readings that relate to this. How do I make in-text citations? How do I make entries on the references page? Okay, and you'll be amazed. It covers the exact same stuff that I went over in this session. But if you need help, you just go in and you'll get more examples, more explanations, etc. So here are general guidelines about what to do. And then it gives you examples, right? So if you're citing a book, which probably nobody in this class will be doing, the more interesting stuff for you is probably the stuff that will come further down. Sources from the internet, like a general website. Here's the rules for handling that. A journal retrieved online, etc. So you have all this information. And the reason I don't go into it in depth is because it's just too confusing. Now, to answer Zachary's question, one of the great things about the Full Sail online database is that you do sort of get some of the work done for you. So for example, here's Big Breasts and Bad Guys, okay? I kept this article open. If we go to the right and click on this guy here, which is the Cite button, boom, we get AMA, APA, Chicago. This is awesome, okay? The only thing that you have to watch out for is that the citation generator makes lots of mistakes. For example, it loves to put authors' names in all caps. That's not correct. Sometimes it likes to put titles in all caps. That's not correct. Here it's not in all caps, but it is capitalizing keywords, the first letter of keywords. That's not correct, because for APA style, the rule for titles is that they're capitalized the way you would capitalize a sentence. But we can absolutely take the reference and then fix it. By the way, this is actually a useful example because it has a DOI number. Do you guys know about this, DOI? And I always forget what that stands for. Digital Object Identifier. It's useful because I don't need a URL. I don't need your link from up here if the reference already has a DOI number attached to it. So the reason I said that this is kind of awesome is because it has everything you need. So yeah, I have no problem that you copy and paste it into your references page. By the way, I have a sample references page kind of set up. And by the way, the last thing we're going to do, bear with me because we are going to go a little bit past the hour mark. I mean, technically we were scheduled for an hour and a half, but I will go a bit over because I do want to teach you how to do this format. It's not difficult at all, but it's easier if I go through the steps, which only takes like 5 minutes. But okay. And by the way, your references page is going to look something like this, okay? Just the word references, not in all caps, not bolded, not italicized, not using some fancy font, just the same font as the rest of the document, okay? And as you can see, it's sort of the opposite of paragraphs. Paragraphs are typically, right, the first line is indented, the other lines aren't. The references page is the opposite. The first line is not indented, but if it goes on to a second line, it is. So I'm going to go ahead and put in the reference I just copied over. Okay? There it is. One of the first things I'm going to do is, because I'm going to fix it, because it needs to be in the same style as the rest of the document. Okay, so I've done that. This needs to be bumped over. Oops. This needs to be bumped over. Boom. The other thing I have to fix is the title. Okay, I said that. Let me blow this up a little bit. Titles need to follow the same rules as sentences in APA style. So all this stuff, goodbye. Right? Goodbye. Adios. After a colon, we do keep the first word capitalized. Boom. 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 Okay? And there, I've got my entry. I hate seeing squiggly lines, so I'm going to quickly run my my grammar checker. Oh, I hate that. It drives me nuts. Okay. So, there's my entry. Perfect form. I'd have to drag it down because it should be in alphabetical order, so it actually should appear after this one here. But this is how an APA citation looks like. And yeah, I was able to do it by grabbing the info from the Full Sail library. So what do you do if you find an article that doesn't have a DOI? Because most of them aren't going to have one. So let's pick another one at random. Okay, most of these I don't care about for real, but I'll just pick this one. Okay. and cross my fingers that it doesn't have a DOI. Or what would be really awesome is if it's just really screwed up, so I have to fix a lot of things. Because that's the problem, Zachary, and this is important for everybody. I don't mind that you use this generator to help you, but it usually generates so many errors you need to be aware of the rules anyway. So let's see what citation comes up for this. Oops, I already had it. Oh, this one's got a DOI too. Come on, that almost never happens. Appetite for destruction. Let's try that one. Come on. Okay, here's a great one. Because it has no author. The title is put in all caps. Uh, so, actually, I'd prefer that there was an author, but eh, what can we do? So, let me go back to my references page. Let's add this guy in here. And by the way, I'm not just fixing the font because it's annoying. I'm also fixing it because the entire document needs to be in the same font size or style. Okay, so first of all, let's get rid of this. Appetite for Deconstruction. That's the title. Okay. And most of it, the rest of it's right, but we're missing one other thing. Because we don't have this DOI number, we need the link. But you're not going to go up here to the top of the page, your browser, and copy and paste, because all that's going to do is result in an error for me. But if you go back to this list of options to the right here, you'll see this thing that looks like a chain link icon. Okay? If we click on that, it gives us what's called the permalink. This is the link I need. So we just copy it. We go back to our thing, our entry, excuse me. We just type the words retrieved from, and I always misspell this word, retrieve from, and then we put in that permalink, okay? Then I have everything that I need to get to your document, and I do need to get to it. And yeah, it will do awkward things like create spaces. That's not a big deal. Okay, does most of that make sense? I know that's a lot to go over. And by the way, for websites, it follows the exact same rules pretty much. Like you'll have author, year, title, and at the end, instead of having this weird permalink, you'll just put in the actual URL for the website. Do I want to save this? Sure, I'll save it just in case. Okay, there's one final thing I want to go over. Do all of you have Microsoft Word? Like, is it something you can open now? If you want to, you don't have to play along. You can do it on your own time. But I'm going to walk you through the steps for how to set up your document in an APA format. So I'm just going to open up a blank document. Yeah, James, Google Docs will work as fine as well. I think you'll just have to pay more attention to the general principles because I'm not sure. Probably their layout is not exactly the same. So I hate to sound cruel, but you'll kind of just have to find stuff. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is set our margins. If you're using Microsoft Word for Mac, there's a nice layout tab. If you're using a PC, I'm sure this function is somewhere. Most of the major functions are usually found somewhere as a tool. For me, it's under the layout thing. And the first thing I need to do is set top, bottom, left, and right all to 1. Okay? And it starts making changes automatically. So they're happening even if you don't notice it. Next is we have to set up our header for the title page, and actually for the entire document. I think this should be standard for PC, Mac, probably even a Google Docs document. But you just double click near the top inch of the page, and it opens up that header. And the first thing we need to do is type in the words running head. Or was it running header? Okay, nothing is working right now. It's supposed to appear by itself. Why don't I just look at my example? Okay, yeah, in all caps, we're going to type running head, colon, and then we're going to use our title for whatever our paper is. So I'm just going to make up a title and call it placeholder title. If you have a really long title that's like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 words, just use like the first 3 words of the title. But again, I'm just going to call this placeholder title. The other thing we need to do is insert page numbers, which here can be found under the insert button. It's also found here, but I just can sometimes never remember where it is. It's automatically set up, at least in the Mac version of Word, to appear where we want it, which is in the top right corner of the first page. Okay, so we got that fixed. So we can go ahead and close that. And we can scroll on down to about midway down the first page. And we need to do a couple different things. First, we need to put the title of the piece. So again, I'm just going to make up something placeholder title. Then your name appears. So I'm just going to put my name. And then the name of the university that you're associated with. So Full Sail University. And by the way, all this should be double spaced. Oh, it's this one. Okay, and I'm going to change the size in this because you can do this by eye, right? So this isn't quite in the center. So we'll just bump it down a little bit. Okay, you can do things by sight. And then we'll just hit return a bunch of times, get ourselves on a second page. And then we're going to type our title again. Again, I'm just going to use placeholder title. We'll hit enter once, not twice. And we can just start typing away. All right, blah, 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 blah. And actually, let me kind of demonstrate. I'm going to copy this and just kind of keep pasting along, right? Then you can just keep typing away. When you reach the end of a paragraph, hit enter or return just once, not twice. Okay, indent and just keep on going. And then when you get to the bottom, when you get to the end of the essay, I said that's where your references page appears. And like I said, on the very first line, centered, we just put the word references. And then we start putting our references entries, right? In alphabetical order, by author's last name, or if there's no author, then whatever is standing in place for it. But it appears in alphabetical order. And by the way, and I'm sorry to keep people waiting, but I am going to show you in real time. Well, just so you can all breathe a sigh of relief, I'm going to go into your class right now, go to the Appeal for Action essay, and don't worry, we're just about done. I'm going to show the quiz questions in 2 seconds. But that sample essay, which I forgot to include, I'm going to drag it in here right now. Okay, so you now have the sample, which when you open up, right, like it's got a model you can follow. So you can see how it's done, especially like the references page, for example. But especially in terms of layout and format. And it looks like even in this session I got something backward. I think the running head is supposed to be in lowercase and the title in all caps. Okay, so even though you might think that's embarrassing, the instructor made a mistake, it's actually good to see that, because the rules are so numerous that this is why I want you to sort of find out these finer details on your own, because there are so many of them. So I'd rather you work through most of this and then you come to me with specific questions, because I realize there's a lot to handle. Although this looks correct. I swear this is in caps and this. I hate APA. No, I shouldn't say that. I'm a teacher. I love APA format. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Uh, APA cover page. What do they show? Yeah, lowercase and then all in caps. Okay, I think I demonstrated it the right way. I think the student's paper had a little small error behind it. Again, even the student's paper, which is pretty flawless, has some small errors. He forgot to put a page number in parentheses after a quotation. It looks like he has things backwards in terms of the running header. So yeah, there's a lot to keep track of. I realize that, but that's why I can't go too in depth. And I could already feel the energy sapping out of this room. So let's get to the quiz questions. This is the roughest session to hold. Um, Real quick, essay stuff you already know, okay? That you've already written your introduction. Hopefully, you have some sort of hook or opening move. You briefly define the issue in your opening paragraph, then you deliver your thesis. You've all pretty much done that on the discussion board, so that's good. Just remember that when you get into the other parts of your essay, the general logic is you're using one topic or one issue or one idea per paragraph. So, for example, in the body of your paper, you probably want to further define the issue. Okay, using separate paragraphs if it takes you a couple paragraphs to make separate points about the issue at hand. Make sure that you discuss your call for action, your solution before you get to the end of the paper. That's something I see a lot that happens. Students begin with a pretty terrific introduction. They do a pretty good job defining the issue over several paragraphs, with each paragraph having its own individual focus. But then the paper shuts down. Like there's no attention really given to the call to action, which is the general purpose behind writing the essay. So don't kind of forget that. Also, the sample student paper, which I just uploaded, that does a pretty good example of showing the overall moves. So take a look at that as well. Okay, quiz question time. Quiz question number 1. Engaging in research is like participating in a fill in the blank. Okay, quiz question number 2. Dropping in a quotation out of nowhere is similar to what social media, think Instagram, annoyance. So when a quotation or fact or statistic just comes out of nowhere, what was my sort of unique way of describing that in social media terms? Okay, we were ready for question 3. Question 3 and question 4 are a little bit more in depth, so be prepared to take a screenshot or write quickly and get the gist down, or just be prepared to watch the video or skip ahead in the video to this point after the fact. Quiz question number 3 isn't really a question. It's something you need to do. I want you to go to the Full Sail Library database, okay, and find a quality source, a quality article. Like I found that one on video games, right? What was it? Big breasts and bad guys or whatever. Okay, so you're going to do that. Find an article that you think could be useful. If it ultimately doesn't end up being useful, that's fine. You're not committed to it, but find something. And once you find it, name the title, the author, and the publication. Briefly summarize the article's main focus. Okay, so you don't have to write a mini essay, but spend a couple sentences telling me the gist of the article. I mean, if it's a super long article, I don't expect you to have read all 40 pages of it. If it's a 3-page article, yeah, I'll have expected you to have skimmed it or taken the 5 or 10 minutes to read it. But kind of, summarize it, the main focus. Okay, and let's move on to quiz question number 4. For that article you found, okay, the one you just found for question 3, give me an end of the paper reference for that article. Okay, I need you to show me that you can follow APA rules for creating a references page entry. So it covers all that stuff that I just went over, and I know there was a lot of it, and I know it was confusing. I know I threw out terms out there like DOI, what was it? Direct Object Identifier? Is that right? Right? Or permalinks, or what you need to do, or here's where you go to McGraw-Hill to learn how to cite. All right, you have that PowerPoint thing, so maybe it's all a little bit fuzzy in your head, but I want you to wrestle with the issue of citing things on the references page. And remember, I also taught you a trick that kind of is a shortcut, but it's not a complete shortcut because you need to fix things. So I mean, I don't take off a massive amount of points when there are small errors, but because I did cover it in the session, I do expect that hopefully you remember what I covered, so you'll fix those small sorts of errors. Um, yeah, James, I would watch it again. The good news is you get to skip around because this is the toughest session to deliver. There's so much information. There's so much stuff that's just dry and research based and APA based. But I promise you this, and this is kind of the final note I'll leave you with. APA really isn't that difficult. Okay? I swear it isn't. It's just that you have to go and find the specific rule that connects to whatever you're trying to do, whether it's an in-text citation, whether it's a references page thing, whether it's a formatting thing. But it really is incredibly easy to take care of. You just need to do it. And with practice, it gets easier. But it's just a matter of going and matching the rule to your situation. It's not really that difficult. It just seems overwhelming at first, especially if you're more used to one style system like MLA than APA. I know I had to do that when I came over here because I'd never used APA in my life before I came to Full Sail. But yeah, and you have all those sources. That PowerPoint thing that I showed you, that's one of your assets for the assignment. Awesome. I'm telling you, spend the 30 minutes with that PowerPoint presentation. You will have everything you need to follow APA format. Everything. Okay? But if you want to go to McGraw-Hill, or if you want to watch this session, parts of it over again, that's there for you too. But yeah, you have all the information. I just went over the more general principles of what we need to do. So, any questions? I know I covered a lot, but anything regarding research, the research databases, APA, topics, timeline. Just stay on top of that activities page. For example, I think isn't there a quiz that's due tomorrow? Yeah, so, okay, the Learn Smart Achieve module is due by tonight, I believe, right? Is today the 9th? Yeah. Okay, we're in week 2. There's an academic honesty quiz that needs to be completed by tomorrow at midnight. Okay, there's a week 2 go-to quiz for this session that's due by Thursday night. The appeal for action essay, so your actual essay is due Tuesday, the 16th. You have another Learn Smart Achieve module, which is due the 14th. So what is that, a Sunday? So there are lots of little things coming up, so make sure you stay on top of it. But are there any questions at all? Did most of that make sense? For some reason, I don't know. Certain things weren't completely open or ready. I wasn't prepared to see that I didn't have the sample paper uploaded to your class. So there are a little bit of trips that happened here and there, but I hope that most of the big picture stuff made sense. And yeah, if you need to watch it again, do so. If you don't have any questions, you can feel free to enjoy the rest of your evening. I'm going to stop the recording now.